History is written by the victors. But what if history itself is a fabrication, a carefully constructed narrative designed to conceal a truth so profound, so unsettling, it would shatter the very foundations of human civilization? We are taught that ancient Egypt was a civilization of god-kings, monumental tombs, and unwavering tradition. For 2,000 years, a pantheon of gods, ruled by the mighty Amun-Ra, governed every aspect of life and death. The pharaoh was their divine representative on earth, an image of strength, perfection, and order. And then there was him, Pharaoh Amenhotep IV, who reigned during the absolute zenith of Egypt's 18th dynasty. He was not depicted as a god-king of perfect proportions. He was shown as something else, a strange, androgynous figure with a gaunt, elongated face, a thin neck, wide hips, a protruding stomach, and spider-like limbs. This was not an anomaly. This was the official royal portrait. Who was this man? And why did he order his artists to portray him in such a profoundly inhuman way? Mainstream Egyptology tells us he was a revolutionary, a philosopher king. But forbidden texts and suppressed evidence suggest a far more radical theory, that Akhenaten was not just a heretic. He may not have been entirely human. This is the forbidden history of the Heretic King, his bizarre physiology, and his devotion to a single mysterious god, the Aten, a god depicted not as a man or an animal, but as a disk in the sky. To understand the revolution, we must first understand the empire it sought to destroy, the 18th dynasty of Egypt. This was the age of Luxor, of Karnak, of unparalleled power. The capital city of Thebes was the center of the known world, and its true rulers were the high priests of Amun-Ra. Mainstream Egyptology tells us that the polytheistic system of Egypt was the bedrock of their society. It was incredibly stable, evolving over millennia. Amun-Ra, the king of the gods, was fused with the sun god, Ra. His priesthood held immense wealth and political power, rivaling that of Pharaoh himself. To challenge Amun-Ra was not just heresy, it was treason, it was societal suicide. Into this rigid system of power, a new pharaoh ascends the throne, Amenhotep IV. In the 5th year of his reign, he commits the unthinkable. He changes his name. Amenhotep meant Amun is satisfied. He casts it aside and declares himself Akhenaten, meaning he who is effective for the Aten. And then he abolishes all other gods. In a single stroke, Akhenaten declared 2,000 years of Egyptian religion a lie. He ordered temples closed, priesthoods disbanded, and the very name of Amun-Ra, the king of the gods, to be chiseled off thousands of monuments, erased from history. In their place, he elevated one god, and one god only, the Aten. But it is here that alternative theorists point to a crucial distinction. They argue that Akhenaten did not simply start worshipping the sun. That is fundamentally incorrect. The Egyptians already worshipped the sun god Ra. Akhenaten's god, the Aten, was something different. In all hieroglyphs, Ra is depicted as a man with the head of a falcon. The Aten is not. The Aten is always depicted as a literal physical disk in the sky, a disk with strange long rays ending in small hands. A disk in the sky, a god that was not a god but an object. This revolution was total. Akhenaten moved the entire capital of Egypt from Thebes, abandoning the city of Amun-Ra, and built a new massive city from scratch in the middle of the barren desert. He called it Aten, the horizon of the Aten. But this religious zealotry, as radical as it was, is not the strangest part of his story. The true mystery lies not in his mind, but in his body. Was his bizarre appearance a clue? Was his new god, the Aten, not a theological concept, but a contact? Was Akhenaten's revolution driven by a force not of this world? When Akhenaten built his new city, he also instigated a new, shocking style of art, known today as the Amarna style. The idealized muscular forms of previous pharaohs vanished. In their place, we see intimate, strange, and almost grotesque portraits of the royal family. Mainstream scholars argue the Amarna style is a fascinating break from tradition. They call it expressionism or naturalism. Akhenaten, they say, wanted to be seen as the truth-teller, stripping away old, rigid artistic conventions. This art is seen as highly stylized, perhaps even a symbolic exaggeration. For instance, his androgynous features, the wide hips, the belly, could be symbolic of his role as the father and mother of all people, the sole provider. But this explanation is hotly debated. Other researchers believe the opposite is true. They argue this isn't expressionism, it's hyper-realism. That Akhenaten commanded his artists, "Portray me as I am." For the first time, they were ordered to sculpt what they actually saw. And what they saw was this. This, they claim, is biological evidence rendered in stone. And this evidence is not limited to Akhenaten. His wife, the famously beautiful Queen Nefertiti, is also depicted with a strangely elongated swan-like neck and a pronounced, lengthened skull. More disturbing are the depictions of their 6 daughters. Statues and reliefs show the young princesses with bodies that are almost non-human. Swollen bellies, thin limbs, and impossibly large, elongated skulls that slope backwards, almost like a cone. This brings us to the most controversial piece of physical evidence, the elongated skull. For decades, medical professionals have tried to retroactively diagnose Akhenaten from his statues. The academic consensus leans toward a medical explanation. The most popular theories? Marfan syndrome, a genetic disorder causing elongated limbs and faces. Or perhaps Froelich syndrome, a hormonal condition causing androgynous features. These were human beings with human ailments. It's that simple. But it's not that simple. Marfan syndrome does not cause an elongated cranium. Froelich syndrome typically causes infertility, yet Akhenaten famously had 6 daughters. These neat mainstream explanations fall apart under scrutiny. Then there is the theory of artificial cranial deformation, or head binding. We know that many ancient cultures, such as the Paracas people in Peru, practiced head binding. They would bind an infant's soft skull between boards or cloth to permanently change its shape, forcing it to grow upwards or backwards into a cone. Could this be the answer? Was the royal family of Egypt engaging in this practice, perhaps to emulate a god or to signify their elite status? Alternative theorists, however, find this argument full of fatal flaws. They point out that head binding displaces the cranial mass. It does not add to it. You can change the shape of a skull, but you cannot change its volume or mass. The Paracas skulls and the skulls depicted in Akhenaten's family are not just reshaped, they are larger. They have a significantly greater cranial capacity than a normal human skull. You cannot add brain matter with ropes and wooden boards. This, they claim, means we are looking at a genetic trait, a feature that is not Homo sapiens. This leads them to a far more fantastic and terrifying theory. What if Akhenaten was a hybrid? The culmination of a long-term genetic program run by an extraterrestrial intelligence, a being engineered to be more than human, placed in a position of ultimate power, the throne of Egypt, for a specific purpose. A hybrid king. A fantastic claim, but it provides a disturbing context for the other great mystery of his reign, the identity of his one true God, the Aten.
This investigation is just beginning. We are about to enter the mystery of the Aten itself. If you believe there is more to our history than we are being told, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell. You won't want to miss what comes next.
The Aten, the center of Akhenaten's universe. As we've noted, mainstream scholarship equates the Aten with the physical sun, a simple, early form of monotheism. Indeed, the great hymn to the Aten, found inscribed in tombs at Amarna, is cited as proof. Academics see it as one of the most beautiful pieces of poetry from the ancient world, a lyrical celebration of the sun as the sole creator and sustainer of life. The hymn reads, "O sole God, like whom there is no other, thou art in my heart, and there is no other that knoweth thee, save thy son Akhenaten." It's seen as a profound theological statement. But when we look closer at the hieroglyphics, is it just poetry? The Aten is consistently depicted as a sun disk, but it behaves in ways the sun does not. Its rays are long, thin, and uniform, like beams, and at the end of each beam there is a small, perfectly carved human hand. Researchers who challenge the mainstream view ask, why hands? The sun's rays don't end in hands. They argue this is a literal depiction, that it's technology, a craft, a machine in the sky, and these are beams of energy or light being directed from it. These hands are not random, they are purposeful. In many carvings, the hands of the Aten reach down specifically to the royal family. They cluster around the faces of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and most telling of all, they hold the Ankh, the Egyptian symbol for life, directly to the nostrils of the king and queen. They argue we should think about what that implies. The Aten is giving them life directly through their noses. It looks exactly like a personal life support system. If Akhenaten and his family were physiologically different, perhaps hybrids, maybe our atmosphere wasn't perfectly suited for them. Maybe they needed this Ankh energy, this particle beam, this technology, simply to breathe, to survive. This theory recasts the great hymn to the Aten in a chilling new light. Is it poetry, or is it a technical description? The hymn states, "How manifold it is, what thou hast made. They are hidden from the face of men. O sole God, like whom there is no other, thou didst create the world according to thy desire. Thou createst millions of forms from thyself alone." Theorists point to that last line, "Thou createst millions of forms from thyself alone." This, they claim, sounds less like a sun and more like a biological cedar ship, a massive, artificially intelligent craft with the ability to create and manipulate life, a terraforming engine. In this view, Akhenaten wasn't a prophet, he was a contactee. He was the human liaison for a non-human intelligence, the Aten. This theory suggests the Aten was not a god to be worshipped, but a physical craft that hovered over Akhenaten's new city, Aten. And this brings us to the city itself. Why build it? Why move millions of people, the entire infrastructure of the world's greatest empire, to a barren patch of desert wasteland? The accepted historical reason is that he built it to escape the corrupting influence of the Amun priesthood in Thebes. He wanted a clean slate, a virgin site dedicated only to his new god. It was a political and religious statement. But the alternative theory suggests a more practical and sinister reason. He didn't just build it anywhere. He built it in a specific, isolated location, a location perhaps chosen by the Aten itself, a clean zone for open communication, a landing site, a place where this thing in the sky could openly interact with its hybrid king, far from the prying eyes of the old priests. A city built for an alien god, a king with non-human DNA. It sounds like science fiction, but the end of Akhenaten's story is perhaps the most unsettling evidence of all.
For 17 years, Akhenaten ruled from his new city. The Amarna period was an explosion of art, culture, and religious revolution. And then he vanishes. History has no record of his death. His tomb, built in the royal cliffs of Amarna, was found, but it was empty. His sarcophagus was smashed. His mummy has never been found. The fate of Akhenaten is one of Egypt's greatest unsolved mysteries. This has led some to speculate, what if he didn't die? Not in the conventional sense. What if his mission was complete? Or perhaps his mission failed? What if the Aten, his god, his life support, simply left? And when it left, it took its creation, Akhenaten, with it. Beamed him up, if you will. This is, of course, wild speculation, but what happened after his disappearance is historical fact, and it is violent. Almost immediately, the old order returns with a vengeance. Akhenaten's revolution collapses overnight. His son-in-law, a young boy named Tutankhaten, living image of Aten, is put on the throne. The priests of Amun force him to change his name to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. They abandon the city of Amarna, leaving it to crumble into the desert sands. The capital is moved back to Thebes. The old gods are restored. But this was not enough. The priesthood, enraged by the heresy, initiated a damnatio memoriae, a damnation of memory, the most severe punishment possible. Akhenaten's name was systematically chiseled away from every temple, every obelisk, every monument in Egypt. His statues were torn down, smashed, and buried. His new city was dismantled. The official king's lists, carved in temples, omitted his name entirely, jumping from his father to his successor as if he had never existed. The goal was not just to kill a man, but to erase his very soul from the afterlife. Mainstream Egyptology gives a clear answer. To the ancient Egyptians, to speak a person's name was to make them live again in the afterlife. To erase their name was to destroy them for all eternity. This was the ultimate punishment for the ultimate heretic. He had tried to kill their gods, so they in turn killed his soul. This official explanation makes perfect sense, but the forbidden history offers a darker possibility. What if this wasn't just revenge? What if it was a cover-up, a desperate, terrified attempt by the priesthood to scrub the historical record clean, not to hide a heresy, but to hide an intrusion, to hide the fact that for 17 years Egypt was ruled by a non-human entity, to bury the evidence of the alien god Aten and its hybrid king Akhenaten. They were burying the truth so that future generations would never know what truly happened.
We are left with a constellation of mysteries. A pharaoh whose physical appearance is unlike any other in 3,000 years of Egyptian history. A royal family, all depicted with the same bizarre, elongated skulls and androgynous bodies. A single god, the Aten, depicted not as a living being, but as a technological disk in the sky, firing beams of life at its chosen few. A new capital city, built from nothing and abandoned just as quickly. And a total, systematic erasure of this king from history. A silence so profound it lasted for millennia, until the ruins of his city, Amarna, were rediscovered in the 19th century. The mainstream view holds Akhenaten as a visionary, a philosopher, perhaps a man afflicted with genetic disease, whose religious experiment was a noble failure, crushed by a dogmatic priesthood. But the alternative view, pieced together from the evidence he himself left behind in stone, suggests something else entirely. For those who look, the evidence points to an intervention, an extraterrestrial contact that culminated in a hybrid ruler, an alien on the throne who tried to shift human consciousness. And the human establishment, the priests of Amun, fought back and won. And they've been covering it up ever since. Was Akhenaten simply a man ahead of his time? Or was he a visitor, a hybrid king? And was the Aten a metaphor for the sun, or a literal alien spacecraft? The debate is far from over, and now we turn the question to you. What is your theory? Was Akhenaten a human revolutionary afflicted with disease? Was he a hybrid king? And was the Aten a metaphor for the sun, or a literal alien spacecraft? Let us know your most compelling theory in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll see you in the next mystery.